We spend our lives chasing income, but hardly anyone ever talks about how to protect it. We built a culture around hustle, grind harder, sleep less, chase the bag. For a while, it works. You start getting traction. You put in long hours, you push through the fatigue, and you start to believe that the momentum will actually carry you. But eventually something gives. You skip one too many meals, you run on caffeine, sugar, and adrenaline. Your body's tired, but your mind keeps pushing until it doesn't. Burnout hits different when your income depends on you showing up every single day, and worse than burnout, when your body decides it's done before your mind does. The truth is, you can only live in overdrive for so long before something actually breaks. And when it does, it's usually not just energy. It's income, stability, margin. Your ability to recover gets smaller the longer you wait to build a foundation that supports you. So here's the question. What happens if you can't keep up with that pace? What happens when the pressure catches up to you? And maybe more important than that, how do you build a system that doesn't fall apart when you do? This isn't fear, it's just math. You're the engine. And if that engine stops running, what keeps everything else moving? So when I talk to people about financial planning, I don't start with products or portfolios. I start with one simple question. If your income stopped tomorrow, how long would you stay on your feet? Because protecting your income is about more than just having a backup plan. It's about giving yourself margin, options, and peace, especially when life doesn't go according to script. When I sit down with clients, we walk through 6 key areas, and each one builds on the other. Think about it like a foundation. You start with structure, and then you build outward. Because if you start with investing before your daily money is under control, you're building a second floor with no walls. We always start with cash flow. That's step 1. It's the part no one wants to talk about because it's not flashy. It doesn't feel like progress, but it's where all your power is hiding. If you don't know where your money is going, you don't have a financial plan. You have a hope plan. You're reacting to expenses instead of directing your income. I'm not saying you need to write down every coffee you buy or color code your life in a spreadsheet, but you need a system, something that shows you what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left over. Because if you're not in control of your cash flow, someone else is. And usually that someone else is debt, auto pay, or impulse. When people finally look at their numbers, they almost always find leaks, subscriptions that they forgot about, and they're still paying for them even though they don't even use it. Money that's being pulled out of their accounts without any intention behind it. We clean that up first. The goal here isn't to cut every fun out of your life. It's to give your money a job, to tell it where to go, instead of asking where it went. Once you get clear on the flow, we move to the second step, building your emergency fund. And look, I get it. Everyone talks about this, and most people tune it out because it sounds basic. But this is the first real layer of protection in your life. Because if we talk about investments, before we talk about insurance, before we even talk about wealth, we build a cushion. An emergency fund isn't just extra cash sitting around doing nothing. It's the difference between a minor inconvenience and a financial spiral. A broken transmission shouldn't cost you a credit score. A dental bill shouldn't mean choosing between care and groceries. A few weeks off shouldn't require a GoFundMe. If you don't have at least 1 month of expenses set aside somewhere safe, that's your priority. If you're self-employed or supporting a family, 3 months is even better. 6 months, that gives you peace. I know that can feel like a lot, especially when you're just trying to stay afloat, but you don't have to build it overnight. Start with 1 paycheck's worth, then build from there. The point isn't perfection, it's progress. Every dollar you put into that fund is a vote for your future calm. And by the way, the emergency fund doesn't just protect your money. It protects your decisions. It gives you options when your back's against the wall. It gives you the ability to say no to desperation moves. It gives you time to think instead of reacting. I've never seen this over and over. People who built up even a small cushion walk through life differently. They actually breathe easier. They sleep better. Because even if things go sideways, which we know they will, they know they won't have to choose between rent or dignity. Here's something most people don't realize. Stability isn't built during chaos. It's built before it. And in an emergency fund is quiet confidence that says, I've got room to breathe. It's not about expecting the worst. It's about knowing that you're going to be okay, even if the unexpected shows up. And honestly, it's one of the best feelings in the world. So at this point, if your cash flow is dialed in and your emergency fund is started, even if it's just your first few $100s, you're already ahead of most people. Because now, when your life throws something your way, you don't spiral, you just adjust. And that's the difference between survival mode and momentum. Now that you've got your cash flow in check and you started building a margin with your emergency fund, we can start talking about the next layer, how to actually protect your ability to earn. This is where most people expect me to jump straight into talking about insurance. And sure, that's part of the conversation, but it's not where we start, because the real danger most people face isn't just a catastrophic event. It's the slow grind, the long-term exhaustion, the system that works fine when everything is going right and immediately breaks down when life gets messy. So let's talk about how to build a life that supports you when you're not firing on all cylinders. First, let's acknowledge something that no one wants to say out loud. You are not a machine. You are a person. You can't output 110% forever without consequence. And yet most of us build our lives like we're invincible. We schedule ourselves to the edge of burnout. We budget down to the last dollar. We stack responsibilities on top of each other like they'll never fall. And then we act surprised when one thing goes wrong and the whole tower starts to wobble. Protecting your income starts with acknowledging that your energy, time, and health are the most valuable financial assets. Because if those go down, everything else becomes harder to manage. So here's the mindset shift. Instead of asking yourself, how do I keep pushing forward no matter what? Start asking, how do I design a life that still works when I need to slow down? For some people, that means putting better systems in place, automating bills, syncing calendars, cutting friction out of daily decisions. For others, it's about boundaries, knowing when to say no and when to rest. Also, how about when to reset? It might even mean building small buffers of time and money into your schedule. So that way, when life hits, you don't have to default to panic mode. And yes, eventually, we do talk about coverage. Things like short-term disability or long-term protection. That replaces a portion of your income, just in case you can't work. Not because you expect the worst, but because we know that even a few months without income can create a ripple effect that's going to last years. But again, that's just one piece. You can have a policy and still be overwhelmed, still be vulnerable, still be exhausted. So we treat that as a tool, not a crutch. This also ties into the fourth area that we're actually going to walk through. And that's debt management. Now, let me be clear. Debt isn't a moral issue. It doesn't make you bad with money. It doesn't mean you fail. In fact, some of the most disciplined, hardworking people I know are carrying debt. Not because they're irresponsible, but because life got a little bit too expensive. And there's the thing most people don't realize. Debt is future income that's already being spoken for. Every payment you have, whether it's a credit card, car loan, student loan, or something else, is a slice of your future paycheck that's already gone. So when we talk about protecting your income, part of that is untangling it from obligations that limit your flexibility. Because if every dollar you make is already committed before it's even earned, then your ability to adapt gets smaller and smaller. And when something unexpected does happen, whether it's a slowdown at work, a family emergency, or just needing to take a break, you don't have options. You have obligations. You have deadlines. And ultimately, you have pressure. So managing debt isn't about just lowering interest rates or getting out faster. It's about reclaiming your income, about creating breathing room again. We don't do shame. We do strategy. We look at everything on the table and we figure out what makes sense for where you are right now. Not some perfect version of your finances 6 months from now. Sometimes it's the snowball approach. Sometimes it's refinancing. Sometimes it's just pausing long enough to reassess the plan and make sure that it still fits your life. And all of this, cash flow, emergency savings, capacity protection, debt, these aren't isolated pieces. They're all part of the same conversation. They work together because the goal isn't just to have a financial plan, it's to have a life that works, even when you're not working at your best. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to optimize every category, but you do need to start seeing income as something worth protecting, not just chasing, because your income isn't guaranteed. It's earned, it's sustained, it's impacted by your energy, your time, your decisions, and your systems. And when you build all that with some care, with clarity, and with room to breathe, the pressure drops, the urgency fades, you're not stuck in survival mode anymore. You get to move at a pace that supports your life instead of one that's constantly threatening it. And that's where real freedom starts. Next, I'm going to walk you through the final 2 layers on how to build wealth once the foundation is already stable, and how to preserve what you're creating so it keeps working for you long after the work is done. We're also going to talk just briefly about how coverage tools like insurance can play a role when they're placed properly in a plan built around your real life. All right, so let's get into it. Once you've cleared up your cash flow, built up some margin, protected your capacity, and untangled the debt, it's time to start looking forward again. This is where we shift from defense to growth, from protecting your income to multiplying it over time. Let's talk about building wealth. Not the hype version, not the overnight version, the real version. The one that works slowly and steadily year after year. Because once your foundation is stable, you can finally make your money work for you. That starts with getting clear on your goals, not someone else's goals, not what the algorithm says, yours. Maybe you want to retire early. Maybe you want to travel more. Maybe you want to buy a home. How about build something for your kids? Or maybe you just want peace of mind that you're not always behind, not always scrambling. Once that's clear, we start aligning your money with those goals. Not through shortcuts, not through magic, through intention. We look at what you're able to set aside every month. We figure out the right vehicles, whether that's a Roth IRA or a brokerage account, your 401k, or something else. We make sure that you understand what the risks and what the timelines are. And most importantly, we take out the emotion out of it, because wealth building isn't about reacting to headlines. It's about staying steady through the noise. If you've got a long-term plan and you're contributing consistently, you're already doing better than most people who jump in and out of the market based on fear. The biggest mistake that I see people make is waiting to start until they feel ready. The truth is, starting small now beats starting later every time. You don't need a huge portfolio. What you need is consistency. Once the engine is running, we look into preserving wealth. This is where we start asking, what happens if I stop working? What happens when I retire? What happens to this money after I'm gone? It's not just about estate planning or taxes. It's about keeping what you've built aligned with your values, whether that means creating a legacy, protecting a spouse, or just making sure that the people that you love don't ever guess about what it is that you wanted. And yes, this is also where insurance finally re-enters the picture, but not the way you thought or the way you might have expected it. For some people, life insurance or disability coverage, it plays a role here, not because they're expecting something bad to happen, but because they wanted to know what if it does. The people they care about won't be scrambling. We don't lead with that. We don't push it, but we also don't ignore it. Because you've worked hard to build a life it's worth taking a moment to think about what happens to it when you're not in the picture. That might mean getting the right type of coverage in place. It might mean updating a will. It might just mean having a conversation with your family about what matters to you. Preserving wealth is really about preserving clarity. It's about making sure that the people you love don't have to carry both the emotional weight and the financial confusion at the same time. Now look, maybe all of this it feels like a lot, and that's okay. No one does this perfectly. No one has all 6 areas locked in on day one. But once you see the full picture, you can't unsee it. You start realizing that protecting your income isn't just a technical financial strategy. It's a way of taking care of yourself and the people that are around you. It gives you breathing room. When things get tight, it gives you options. When life's throwing you a curveball. And it gives you freedom, not in the social media flashy sense, but in the real, grounded, deep exhale kind of way. That's the kind of life that I want to help people build. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just need to be ready to look at where you are at and where you want to go, and what kind of plan can actually get you there. If you're ready to take that first step, even if it's just a conversation, I'd be happy to walk you through it. Not with pressure, not with jargon, just with clarity, patience, and a plan that fits your life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.